Today I want to share with you why using the word modification in your classes might actually be disempowering your students and what else you can say instead. Now, I know that this word isn't inherently bad or sinister in any way, shape, or form, and as a teacher, you know from the back end of things, from the teacher perspective, modification is just simply that, a way to modify a pose to benefit the student. But what I've noticed in my years of teaching is that a lot of students and even teachers are viewing this word modification as an inferior option. And they are viewing the pose that is not modified, the ideal pose, as the superior option. And this is why I like to instead use the words valuable variation instead of the word modification. Now, when you say valuable variation and you say those two things together, you are setting your student up to be much more introspective, to consider, oh, what's valuable for me? It's not this is the pose and this is the modification, right? It's not this is the superior and this is the inferior. And even if we don't present it in that way, I understand we can be very neutral about presenting these things and not necessarily put a bias on it. But it's important to understand that the psychology of a lot of your yoga students will already put a bias on a modification, on something that's modified, that's different than what the ideal pose is. So this is where if you use the word valuable, then we're taking their perception of a modification and we are already framing it. You're framing it in a way that is much more considerate of themselves. Oh, what is valuable for me? Where does the value sit for me right now? Then variation. Now, you can play around with valuable modification, but I have found in my experience that this is still not received as potently as variation. Valuable variation. What is the most valuable variation for you to explore right now in your practice? This type of cueing is really going to help your students be able to consider themselves. And as a yoga teacher, that is likely something that is important to you. You want your students to consider themselves. You want them to be able to tune in, to truly hear their bodies. What do they need? And then also act on that. So it's one thing for them to hear what they need, but if they're taking the lesser option, the inferior option, a modification, instead of the actual pose, then more often than not, they're sitting there thinking that, this isn't as good or I'm not as good. So you want to empower them to be able to take the most valuable variation that works for them and use that in a way where they actually truly tune into their needs. They connect with their needs, they listen to their body, and they take that and they actually action it. So you're using the word valuable to set the frame, to really set the tone, and then replacing the word modification with variation, and then using that in a way that really does support your students in their autonomy, their agency, and helps them truly do what works for them and what's right for them and what's valuable for them within their yoga practice. If you found this to be really helpful for your teaching, please let me know in the comments. Make sure you like the video and subscribe to my channel for more teaching tips just like this.